Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new spoiler discussion, and we are once again here to talk some wrestling as Money in the Bank took place last night in Los Angeles. I'm flying solo on stage spoiler discussion. We've not been able to get Ren on or some other guests, so this is going to be a little bit different. This is the first time. I guess it's not the first time I've talked wrestling on the channel alone, because we've had documentaries, we've had films, but with the spoiler discussions we've been doing and the shows we've been able to put on, it's going to be exciting to get other people's thoughts down the line. So, as always with these spoilers discussions, we are talking about everything from last night's event. Please do comment your thoughts on Money in the Bank, whether you enjoyed it, whether you didn't, if you thought the right people won, if you thought the wrong people won. I do want to hear people's thoughts on the show, the event, and I guess a current one, the current state of WWE, because there's been a lot of discussion about TKO in the last month, particularly since Backlash, the weekly shows that have been going on, new sponsors to talk about, all these sorts of things. So TKO has been a big discussion point recently, and I shall give some thoughts on those because we also have the new WrestleMania location confirmed. I say new location, we'll get to that. But as always, if you like this video, if you want to support the channel, please do subscribe and hit the like button. We are going to be doing more of the wrestling pay-per-views. We've been doing them for quite a few months now. It's a lot of fun. It's still something new to us doing on the channel, and we do want to help build that up, and with your support, we're able to do more wrestling stuff in the future, maybe a little bit more than what we currently do with just covering the PPVs. But that being said, let's talk Money in the Bank 2025. One of the most important pay-per-views of the year. I know it's not part of the traditional Big Four, but if it was to ever be the Big Five, it's because we've put Money in the Bank in it. It's one of my favorite type of matches that wrestling has and does. And I'm going to be that guy that says I also prefer Money in the Bank when it's part of WrestleMania. I don't think that's a nostalgic opinion, but that is my thoughts on Money in the Bank itself. I understand why it's got its own pay-per-view and the popularity of it. I love the concepts of Money in the Bank, but I don't enjoy it as much as a whole pay-per-view. You could look at last year's, for example, that we had a same-day failed cash-in from Drew, and that essentially didn't give us Money in the Bank men's wrestler for a year. So you haven't really had a proper one since Damian Priest. But I will say, I loved the decision with Drew and Punk last year because it built up their rivalry, and they did the best rivalry of last year, no matter what people say. So there are praises for that, and I'm just glad we can say one day on that they didn't do it in the same show. Maybe it's going to take place on Raw tomorrow. That's one conversation piece that's going to come. But yeah, we're going to be going through the results. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on those. We had 5 matches in the card, which has become quite traditional for the non-Big Four pay-per-views. We'll be going through each of them. I'll be doing it in the card order. I'll be giving my thoughts on the match, maybe on a couple of spots, with it being a ladder match. There's so many incredible people involved throughout the night. I didn't see Worlds Collide yesterday, the AAA event that took place before. I have seen memes, Mr. Iguana, who is quite something. I'm trying not to laugh too much because yeah, we'll get to the Dom match later, but it's a great time to be part of this and seeing these partnerships come in. It's still surreal to see places like TNA being mentioned and having crossovers there. So it was an interesting pay-per-view. And obviously we're getting on that journey towards SummerSlam. We know it's a 2-night event this year for the first time. We've got Night of Champions in 3 weeks' time. We've got Evolution 2 in July as well. So there's a lot more wrestling taking place. Maybe the conversation is going to turn into, are there too many Payleys at the moment? It felt like, I mean, we just had the Rumble at the start of Feb. Then we had Elimination Chamber. And then it was Mania. We had like 3 in 2 months. Well, a bit more than 2 months, 2.5 months. And that feels like we're getting them every sort of 3 weeks, which is quite a lot. It's quite a lot to keep up to. So I'll be doing my best to do this. And where I'm going to sort of kickstart my thoughts on current set of WWE is TKO is under a lot of fire at the moment. We had the releases for video discussion, the releases of R-Truth last week alongside Carlito. There's been uproar with this. We've seen many wrestlers being released over the recent months. My personal viewpoint of the TKO side of things is, you know, me being based here in England that follows football, our sports and our history and legacies attached to those are quite important, and there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. And people can get upset in America, but it's fine. The Americanization of football, and I mean real football, not bullshit American football, real football. The Americanization of this is coming in strong. I'm dreading the World Cup next year. It doesn't need to be in 3 countries, each of which are big enough to host it by itself. We're seeing this outrageous Club World Cup in a few weeks, and we're seeing more Americanization things trickle in. I can't remember the name of the artist. She sung at the Champions League final about 2 years ago and tweeted abuse that she got booed by everyone in the stadium. I agreed with that. If I was there with my club, I'd have been booing her too, because that's not football. It isn't gimmicks. It's not the Super Bowl. So my background heading into where I'm going with the TKO conversation is rooted in the traditions of what I'm watching. But wrestling's a bit different because it's sports entertainment, as they'll say. It's scripted entertainment. It's not fake. I'll never ever say that. But they are putting on a show. I like to call it theatre with stunts to a lot of people. Some people like to say it's a soap opera for men. There's obviously been so many discussions about wrestling over the decades. And the TKO coming in, taking Vince out, murmurs at the time, could they start doing this, that? You go back to the Prime sponsorship in the ring and the outrage when that first came out, and I'm going to be the guy that says it. The Prime sponsor in the ring wasn't that bad, because here we are now with another show with about 7 different ring sponsors on every Monday, every Friday, every event like this. It changes every time, and it's quite hard to look at this and recognize this as sort of part of wrestling. It's almost sacred ground that the ring shouldn't have sponsors. And now not only is the ring not getting sponsored, we just couldn't end it there. We have to have Slim Jim's table spots now. We have, was it Firecracker sponsoring the ladder now? We've got Cash App sponsoring the Money in the Bank briefcase now. I understand the money they're going to make from this. I really do understand it from a business perspective, but it can be unrecognizable at times, some of the outright nonsense I think this has. You can add in the fact that the price to go to these events is now an extremely deranged premium, certainly here in the UK. I want to talk about an event coming to the UK. So Raw's going to be in Birmingham in the bank holiday, 24th of August, I think, here in the UK, 25th of August. And where it is, the venue is a 25-minute drive from where I live. It is where I go to the cinema, where I do half my reviews. So I know the area very well. And I went to a house show there last year, which was incredible. My ticket was £40. And in TV terms, I was hard camera side, nearer the top. But because it was one tier, it didn't feel like you were near a top. It was a one-tier venue. It held 20k. £40 was fair. It could have been more. I've been to Raw tapings in Manchester where it's like £70. To see Raw 20 minutes from where I live, and the cheapest tickets were £350 is disgraceful. So I know I'm not paying that on principle. And this is adding to the TKO thing. They're doing less house shows because they're making more money, so they're putting less events on. But then they're driving up the prices of everything else. And like what happened at SmackDown and Raw in London in April, I will wait till 3 days before the event takes place. I will go on Ticketmaster, and all the unsold seats will be drastically reduced down to probably like £100. I don't mind paying that. But again, this is a very different entity now under TKO than it has been. And I think for the first time, we're now seeing it stretch too far into the ring. I don't doubt this is the real shout on Benjamin, but 7. Sorry, I'm laughing. There were probably near 100 sponsors. And it just seems to change everything. So I've got some thoughts on TKO. And as I said, with the releases that are coming, I believe talent are signing up, this talent took a pay cut to join them. I don't have an opinion on that because people can do as people please. Independent circuits are valued very differently compared to, obviously, the WWE. It's a complete different entity, complete different business. It's more life-changing. So I'm not getting to the whole, they've got to grind thing, all that nonsense. But TKO, I'm not the most best pleased by. And that being said, let's have a quick discussion about WrestleMania. Let's have The Rock, board member of TKO, come out, have this big moment, announce WrestleMania, New Orleans next year. Let's go. The 3rd time in 10 years, which it didn't need to be 3rd time in 10 years or whatever. And within 3 months, that is gone. And we officially, as rumored, have replaced New Orleans with Vegas, with various reports reporting that Vegas itself as a state would like to be hosting either like the Super Bowl, Mania, I think college football championships and something else annually. They want one big event a year. I just sort of sat there thinking, so WrestleMania is going to probably be in Vegas, like, let's say 2 out of every 3 or 4 years moving forward, which I think is a crying shame as someone in the UK that is still dumb enough to think we'll get a WrestleMania one day. We had, of course, the Tony Khan, Triple H and Sadiq Khan meetings last year. We had the press there. I was sort of thinking, are we going to get it 2027, 2028? Now, if you look at the schedules, New Orleans are now owed a WrestleMania. oh God, wherever the Rumble was in January, just gone. I forgot where they are. I believe owed a WrestleMania as part of their contract. So there's already 2 states there. We know that Saudi Arabians are going to outbid anyone to have one, and they should never have one. It should never ever be allowed there, but they will get one eventually because they're going to offer enough money to satisfy TKO. And it just makes me think, yeah, we're never going to get it here because you still got to then have it back in America as well. So I'm in a bit of a weird patch of TKO. It's kind of going the way we thought it would, but I never thought we'd see it creep into the story as much. I'm not just going to sit here and slag off booking decisions and be a typical internet person like, that could have been done differently. But based on the R-Truth conversations this week, obviously we don't know. I thought it was a work by WWE. There are reports saying it wasn't a work. He signed a contract 3 days ago. I do not know. I guess we'll find out in the coming days or weeks or something else in that respect. But it's kind of worrying. Yeah, it's worrying. Like household names, like, and I'm not going to say anything disrespectful about R-Truth. The guy's a legend, but for them to potentially, if this is true, just axed him. Yeah, we're not going to agree on your contract. Cheerio, bye bye. I straight after a TV run with Cena, of course. Not that I dislike it. I understand perspectives of this is someone that's at a latter point in their career. We don't think we should be paying this, blah, 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 blah. I'm no company guy doing a kiss ass thing. It sounds like I'm going to say it, but I'm not. But I'm sort of saying I'd understand if they didn't want to proceed with R-Truth and giving him a new deal. However, I would expect an outcome of that for somebody like R-Truth to then be a legend contract or something, because there is no way you still cannot have him involved within this business, within what he's done for this company and how long he's worked there. So it's that Americanization thing that I keep talking about, the corporate mindset that comes into play. And it is very much something that can happen when you do take it out from being a family business. That's not me defending Vince McMahon, but when, you know, George Lucas running Lucasfilm, Vince McMahon running WWE, then you've got TK, you've got Disney. You can look at any entity ever that's gone. So I can even point to some really niche stuff like Mondo art prints being sold to Funko. Nonsense like that. It does happen and things get changed. So that's my really weird intro, just talking about the current state of TK and WWE. It's a strange one. WrestleMania didn't need to be in Vegas again next year. I do not care for it in Vegas next year. It's later on in the month again too. So I think it's just a bit of a joke. That being said, Money in the Bank last night was not a joke. I really enjoyed the event. I thought it was a very good PPV. I'll give my thoughts on each match now. I say very good. It was good. It was entertaining. It was better than Backlash. I thought there are some things I really liked, some things I didn't, and I'm going to start breaking down the matches and going through it. So, Women's Money in the Bank was first on the card, and I'm going to jump in with an incredibly controversial opinion. So people are going to maybe hate me for this. I don't think this was a bad match by any stretch of the means, but I think when you look at the 6 incredible competitors involved, it didn't feel not right, but it didn't feel. I went into this, and I do this with so many of the women's matches, where more often than not, like the women's Money in the Bank would be better than the men's. The women's Rumble can be better than the men's, and this does happen quite a lot. I thought yesterday, just outright, the women's Money in the Bank is going to absolutely destroy the men's. There'll be much better spots, much better moments, better storytelling. The competitors involved will be much more enticing as a viewing. And whilst it delivered with lots of those, I was actually quite underwhelmed with this. And I'm in this really weird stage where I'm just going to first and foremost say I'm delighted Naomi won. I think she was the best candidate to win. Rhea doesn't need it. Rhea is the star. She's one of the biggest names in the business. She doesn't need Money in the Bank right now because she will end up as part of the women's division in a women's title feud at any given opportunity. So she didn't need the briefcase. There is no way it was going to go to Stephanie McCurry. It was not going to go to Julia, both of which have just made, the move up into the main roster. We've then got Alexa Bliss, who we're sort of TBC with figuring out what's going on with storylines with her. And then we can also look at Naomi as well, who, if I'm just going to be totally blunt, is in one of the most interesting perspectives of her career. I'm just going to say Roxanne Perez as well is still, she'd have been like a fair second choice, but I don't think she's ready yet for the briefcase to have that push. But Naomi is a very deserving winner. The new gimmick of hers I'm absolutely loving with the caution tape, her heel run I've really enjoyed. And I'm looking at the perspective of she could have the briefcase from 1 day to 1 year, maybe with Money in the Bank now in August next year. Does it mean it's a 14-month Money in the Bank? Who knows? But you could put Naomi in a storyline with Tiffany Stratton tomorrow morning. you could have Jade win the belt off Tiffany, and then you could run Jade v Naomi again. You could bring Bianca Belair into it. Naomi makes the most sense in terms of a winner from a storytelling perspective. It's absolutely right. She wins it. And the form she is on with the work, with what she's done since her return to WWE, I'm so delighted for her. She absolutely deserves the moment. And I'm just going to say it, when the time comes to cash in, I do not care who it is on. She absolutely deserves to walk out of there as the women's champion. I do think it would be better for it to be the SmackDown version. I don't think she will need to head over to Raw. She could, but I just feel that all of her stories and what she's been working on are so intertwined with SmackDown that could work in itself. And I thought, again, she was the best winner. There were some very good spots, but the match itself I just wasn't blown away by compared to normal. It didn't ever feel like it was a 6-person ladder match. And I don't just mean I don't need 6 people running around the ring like headless chickens, or 1 climbs, 2 climbs, 3 climbs, 4. Everything felt so premeditated. It felt almost too scripted that it didn't run as fluently as some ladder matches do. It's almost like they had the spots, they knew what they had to do, and it felt quite slow at times when they were getting to those. A lot of waiting, a lot of lurking. It was a weird one, the women's. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. But I still thought it was a very good match. And that's what you kind of want with this. I then got to talk about the final new announced match. Obviously, Dirty Dom Mysterio against Octagon Jr. announced earlier on the day during the other event. Obviously, like if you're like me, you're pretty blindsided. If you weren't on social media, you wouldn't have seen it. I'd seen it a couple of minutes before the show started. So I didn't have much of an opinion on this. There's no way they're going to drop the IC belt on a WWE show to the crossover. Dom's just really getting going with his reign. There's a lot more for him to do. And I think when the time comes for him to drop it, I think it will be a Chad Gable, maybe a Rey Mysterio. Like, it will be a luchador, I think. Maybe El Grande Americano, but I think there's still a lot more story to have with Dom. And I think, obviously, if we're dealing with the Carlito being gone from the Judgment Day, if there's stuff to come with Finn, then it makes sense for Dom to keep it. But the match itself I thought was fine. I just didn't have any personal connection or care for it. I actually would be totally blank. I can't even remember any moments, more so. It's one of those that you kind of know the outcome. It's like they just needed to put this match on to get it to five matches on the card, because it was strange that there was only 4. With it being called a premium live event, 4 matches is to me just bang on, not on. You need to have a minimum of 5. And it felt like something too last minute. I don't know if that's a bad thing to say or a good thing. Maybe there's other plans. I do not know. But I'm glad that Dom's retained and no one else has got involved with the story yet. Because I think as we start to slowly build towards SummerSlam now, it's going to come just under 2 months, right? I think 7 or 8 weeks. We're going to start to see some of these storylines shift, and it's a 2-night event. There's a lot of story for them to build up that they'll need to be covering for that. And I think Dom versus Finn could very much be one on the card. Following on Dom v Octagon Jr., we've got Lyra Valkyrie versus Becky Lynch. This is one of the most interesting matches of the night. They had easily the best match at Backlash. They've had a phenomenal feud. I think Becky Lynch has really elevated the IC title picture, which was sort of stuck in no man's land with the women's. The women's mid-cards have been in a very awkward position for me, where Chelsea Graham was doing her best, but I don't think either of the belts were getting the recognition on the main shows outside of the weekly ones. They weren't on the PLEs, and it just felt like very pointless titles, if I'm honest. So I think by bringing Becky Lynch into it, having the storyline, setting them as friends turn rivals. Yes, it was very last minute. Yes, we had the outrageous Bayley moment. Kind of overshadowed heading into it, where I was sat like, okay, so we've got a stipulation of if Becky Lynch doesn't win, she can never challenge the IC again, whilst Lyra's the champion. And if Lyra wins, she has to hold Becky's hand up to announce her as the winner. I thought this was nailed on for a Bayley return to set up a triple threat for them at SummerSlam. Obviously, Bayley hasn't returned yet. Becky's won the belt via roll-up, similar to how Lyra did it. I'm all up for them for having a 3rd match in the trilogy. Whether we get that, whether it is a triple threat, as I say, I do not know. Again, it felt like the whole, I'm going to lift a hand up with good sportsmanship. I don't mind that. Obviously, it gets a bit too far. We then do the attack on her. So I don't have much of an opinion on it. I'm curious to see how far Becky's willing to stay within the mid card. And I'm all for her being in it, if I'm going to be completely honest with you all. I do really like her as a wrestler. There's been some odd comparisons to Hogan in recent years, which she's actually commented about, which is unfair as well, that they got that far that she had to comment on them. But this is the difference between her and someone like Charlotte, where Becky can do story outside of a title picture. She can drop to a belt below. She can look at other talent and work with them, do a tag run, whatever. There's just nothing of that with Charlotte. And we all know how incredible she is as a performer. And it feels horrible I'm just picking on her, but it's those kind of issues where people were switched off, people didn't want certain feuds, and just waltzing back in, winning the Rumble, getting that main event spot. It's not earned. And I think for Becky, she could have waltzed back in, probably could have said, "Can I win a Rumble?" Probably could have said, "I want to have a go at Tiffany," or "I want to have a go elsewhere." But she hasn't. She stayed in the mid card, and it's elevating the mid card. That's what you want. There's nothing wrong at times with the stars going to the mid card to elevate, because it's the work title. It's not a disrespect. It's not a relegation to be involved in that. You're not being shipped over to NXT or further developmentals. You're part of an ongoing story with others. So that's a really big thing for me. And I really appreciate the storyline more so than the match. As I said, I'm curious to know where this goes. Will it be a rematch at Night of Champions? I hope not. I really hope they try and maybe build it towards SummerSlam. And if I'm going to be totally blunt, shouldn't have any women's wrestling in Saudi Arabia anyway. They don't deserve to have any of the talent when they're all dressed up like Power Rangers, head to toe, and just utter nonsense. One of the reasons why they should never have, for many reasons, and they should never ever have a Mania. Then we have the men's Money in the Bank match, which was the match of the night for me. Loved this. This felt like a proper ladder match, and this is kind of where I'm going criticizing the women's one earlier. This just felt like 6 people just going at it to try and win this. This felt like there were stakes on the line. It felt like whoever wins this, it is going to change their career path. It's going to change the trajectory of the business for next year. And there were many opportunities with different people. There was discussions about Solo winning this match, which I was sort of sat there like, okay, like I kind of really like Solo, and if they gave him Money in the Bank, he'd do well with the character side of having the briefcase, but he isn't going to be in the main event picture in his show with John Cena. And I can't see him going over to the Raw, even though his brother is the title winner, which there would have been story. I couldn't see that group making the move over. So I felt Solo's got his own thing going, and we know he's obviously going to the Jacob moment, which I'll get to. And whilst he could have won, he didn't need to. LA Knight was the internet's favourite. For 3 years in a row, people want him to win, and he hasn't won. And I think he'd be a great Mr. Money in the Bank, if you want to call it that. I think you could see him with the belt, threatening the cash-ins, probably having a successful cash-in, the pop, the reaction, the you deserve it chance. He'd have been a perfect choice as well. You've then got Penta, which no, I think is too soon. I think he ends up in the mid-cards, but it's a ladder match. Of course, you need Penta in there to have this outrageous spot. Andrade, one of the hardest workers. We know how good he is with his spots. He looked like he got injured. I don't know if he was legitimately injured, but it looked like he really nastily did his foot on the Mexican Destroyer landing, but he is just phenomenal. You can put him in the ring with anyone and know you're going to have a good match. That's why someone like Andrade works so well in a 6-person ladder match. Then you got Seth Rollins, who is obviously the MVP. He's obviously got the new faction that they've built up. There's potential story there to go wherever. He's a threat within itself that I could see him with the belt, like when he famously had it last time, and he could just carry it for a year. But when he cashes, you know it's going to be sensational. And this is kind of where I am with this, that there were so many different people that I think could have won this, that maybe should have won this. El Grande Americano as well. I wouldn't have opposed him winning. I really like what's going on. Some people really hate it, and I understand that, but I really enjoy it. I love Chad Gable. If El Grande Americano had won it, I think they'd be actually legitimately trying to pull away for them to say it isn't him, that it's somebody else. I wouldn't mind that for a storyline. And I think had it been Chad Gable, not El Grande Americano, I think I'd have been more excited for him to be in it, because I do think when the time comes, he should be winning a belt. I'm just going to be the guy that says it. I think Jay's a terrible champion. I've had reservations before. I hate the fact that there's been a tag match, which I'll get to later. It feels like a drawn-out title reign just for the sake of, because we did this at Mania and he's over. And, you know, you've got to talk about other things as well. Like when Triple H is coming out saying, oh, yeah, people in the stadium are very different to people online. I kind of get that, But at the same time, mate, everyone's chanting Karrion Kross, and he's nowhere to be seen. Where is Karrion Kross's push? He's doing the best promos online. He's over. He is selling merch for them. He's making the money, and now there's no space for him. I don't agree with that, because it's the whole world. You can't moan because people in the arena like him. People in the arena are chanting for him. Nothing's happening. Just like people in the arena chanting for CM Punk for 10 years who wasn't part of the company. So it's a very peculiar scenario Karrion Kross is in, and I think he's someone that should have been in Money in the Bank. That opportunity to be with them, he wasn't even in a qualifying match, which is outrageous if you really think about it. So it's a tricky one. I really enjoyed the match. It was just carnage. The spots were superb. We've got to talk about the Jacob Fatu turn on Solo, given what happened on SmackDown the night before. This has been a long time coming. Some thought it might have been sooner. Some thought it might be Solo turning on Jacob. I'm glad it's the way around. The pop for Jacob, he is going to be main event. He will be a world champion, I think, within the next year. The business are clearly protecting him in the aspect of not having him lose clean or do stuff like this. They've built him up as an absolute monster, and he's delivering at his end of that too. So there's a lot of excitement with Jacob. And Jacob v Solo, again, it feels inevitable for SummerSlam. Put a US title belt on the line, that's absolutely fine too. I'm not entirely sure what else may occur from it. We know Jacob needs to go solo, no pun intended. We know he needs to have his own career away from them, that he can maybe go into one of the the other shows to go at the belt in there. But when the time comes for him to make that leap into main event, he's proven once again, just like at the Rumble, that he can. I mean, I get in this face-offs of him and Bron Breakker, which is a matchup everyone wants to see. He had a great moment at the Rumble with the pair of them. So I love Money in the Bank. Seth Rollins winning it, I have no problem with. I think he's the best case scenario to have won it. And I think you can actually look at Seth, and he could be the only person you think of he could cash in on John Cena. If Seth's brand is now about the legacy of wrestling more so than personal circumstances, Seth coming head against John Cena, the company guy versus the retiring person who wants to retire with the company, taking the belt away from existence, that is natural for Seth to go at him. I know you obviously kind of two heels going for each other, but Seth cashed on Cena, it probably won't happen, but of the six of them in that match, it's the only one you could even vaguely consider having a successful cash-in that would work, storyline that people would want to see. So I'm fine for it to go with Seth. And if he doesn't want to do it against John Cena, then he could do it any other time against anyone. It's going to be earned. He's got a team that are running absolute rampage on Raw. We'll obviously have a title match tomorrow with Gunther and Jay, which could be very interesting. I do not want Gunther to win it and be cashed in on, but I don't mind if Gunther destroys Jay, somehow doesn't win, and goes at him again and leaves him for Seth. There is a scenario where Seth Rollins could cash in tomorrow, and I think there's a possibility. And there's an even better scenario that Seth doesn't cash in, and he could tease cashing in for a good 6 months, because we know how good he is at the mic, how good he is with his own presence. They can really brand out the merch side of Money in the Bank. So I'm delighted Seth's won. I think he's a worthy winner, and he may be the best of the six for story. I would have loved LA Knight, but again, I don't see him cashing in on John Cena. He'd need to be on Raw. He'd need to cash in on heel, not face. So it's a tricky one for LA Knight. He's in a really weird mid-ground where I think he's just been unlucky on SmackDown that, he's basically been up against Roman Reigns on that undisputed run. He's obviously not going to be putting anything with Cody. And now he's probably not going to be put against Cena. So if they do a draft, I really think it'd be best for LA Knight to get a Raw, to move to Raw. But he is a big part of SmackDown for me. Like, he feels part of that Friday night SmackDown vibe, and maybe it means he goes back to the mid card. I don't know. He's in a weird part at the moment. But I've got to talk about the main event, and this is Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus John Cena and Logan Paul. I'm sorry, I'm saying this. I did not care for this match at all in the absolute slightest. I hate that this match was announced to begin with. I kind of have seen stuff online. People always thought they're going to do John Cena versus Logan Paul, not with both of them as heels, because then Cena's going to get cheered and he beats the shit into Paul. And if Paul was trying to be a face and that, he'll still be booed by everyone. So a tag match with them has obviously happened. And returning Cody Rhodes with Jey Uso, I understand. I really do understand that. Again, my thoughts on Jey is that I just don't think he should have ever been made champion. I understand he's over. I understand he's popular. I understand he moves merchandise. But as I said, with Karrion Kross, I said about LA Knight. 2 years ago, LA Knight's the biggest draw in the company. they didn't get given titles because they were over by people in attendance. So I think there's a lot of nonsense there. And it feels a bit disrespectful to Jay-So because I've got nothing against him personally. I just don't think he's got the talent and ability to actually be one of the heavyweight champion in the business. People are going to disagree, that's fine. But this match just felt like a sick excuse for we're contracted to get Cena in for all the PLEs. We kind of need to have him have something with Cody, but we don't want to run their actual rematch yet. We were going to run Logan versus Jay, so why don't we put them all together in a big tag team match? There was some interesting spots, but I just didn't care for this. I think the momentum in the Bank match was so good, so chaotic, that what followed was going to be overshadowed. And I just didn't care for Cena turning on Logan Paul to an extent. I don't care for that either. Of course they're going to fall out. They're both heels. They're not the team. They're going to do something to each other and they're going to blame each other. So it's a really weird one for this for me. I just have no opinion on it. I don't care for it. I don't want to see it again. I know we're probably not going to see it again, but I guess we have to be praised that at least it wasn't John Cena and Travis Scott versus Cody and Jay. Who knows what's on the table for SummerSlam, but do I talk about Cena's heel run? Because that's a discussion point, and because we don't do wrestling every week, we don't get little intricate moments, but there's a lot of talk about Cena's heel run being disappointing. I'm still very polite in me saying that it's only June. He's going to be here through to December. But I have got to say, since winning the belt, John Cena goes to cheat to win using the title. John Cena's heel run has felt like a 1980s heel run. It doesn't feel like there's a three-dimensional character, It doesn't feel like there's writing or story to it. It just feels like we hit the switch on heel John Cena. And yeah, he's a bad guy now, and he does bad things because he's a bad guy, and there's no real depth to that. You look at the likes of Kevin Owens, how he turned heel, and it was this build-up, and in the mind of him as a character, he was right to do what he did. John Cena will say in his mind he was right, but this is different. Kevin Owens is a perspective that works. Yes, I'm a villain, but actually Cody did team up with the Bloodline who were doing this to me. And it's the consequences of actions that the heels have done so well in recent years under Triple H. And for me, the Cena heel, and I'm not going to call it disappointing yet because it's so early, but I'm very worried that this may be looked at quite terribly if nothing changes very soon. I don't want to have him lose at SummerSlam to Cody and him clear his mind and think, I've got to be good to win the belt, I've got to retire on good circumstances. I'd also don't want him to be hitting everyone with the title belt every time. Why can't heel John Cena just be an absolute monster who wins matches? Why can't he be a heel that wins matches clean? It can be done. I know they don't want it for story purposes, but it can absolutely be done. Make him out to be... It was why Gunther was such a great IC champion. So I wish they could make John Cena look strong because he looks weak as a champion. And for the greatest of all time, he looks very weak as the greatest of all time. Whether it's part of a long-term story, I'm fine with that. I understand that. But for me, I hope there's some changes very soon. I think he's unfortunately been thrown into a tough corner by The Rock in the concept of The Rock to make him heel. John Cena didn't need The Rock that night to be a heel. It would have been shocking within itself. It then obviously created different conversations about what's The Rock's input for Mania and all this stuff. And he no-showed it as usual. So yeah, it's a weird one for me at the moment. And we have the returning R-Truth attacking John Cena. I didn't mind that. At all. So I'm curious to know what happens next. I really doubt we'll get R-Truth versus John Cena at Night of Champions, but maybe I'm wrong. Although there are reports that he'll be going by Ron Killings now rather than R-Truth, his actual name. So if that is to be, then fair enough. I'm intrigued to see what goes down with the pair of them. But I am slightly worried that we're at the halfway point of Cena's heel run, and I don't think there's been any depth to it. I don't think there's any standout matches or moments by that heel run to begin with, which is quite worrying, if I'm being totally honest. So that's me giving my final thoughts on that match, giving my final thoughts on Money in the Bank as a whole. I thought it was a good PPV. I don't have a problem with this PPV. It's a good one. It's better than Backlash. As I said, I've got no opinion for Night of Champions in a few weeks. I will be watching it, but that feels like a B tier of the B tiers, whereas this feels like the A tier of the B tiers. So yeah, it was good. I was entertained by it. I think others would have had a blast with it. I'm excited to see what happens storyline with Seth and others across the coming weeks. Maybe next time I do a stream, there will be a new world champion whether it be Raw or SmackDown, I guess we'll find out. So that's going to be me rounding out with this. To everybody who's been watching, commenting, thank you so much for doing so. It is nice wrestling on the channel. It's something different, and we will try and get ready on for the next one. But as always, if you're not watching it live, please do comment below with your thoughts on Money in the Bank. Whether you agree with me, disagree with me, if you're enjoying the heel Cena run, maybe you're not. I'm very curious to know what people think of this one. And as always, if you like this video, please do share it. We are doing more wrestling stuff. We have had a wild few weeks. It's been so busy. There's been so much TV, and all The Last of Us, Doctor Who, wrestling to an extent. We're back into blockbuster season. I was seeing How to Train Your Dragon tomorrow. There'll be a review for that. We've had reviews for Ballerina. So many new releases. Mission Impossible, you name it. We've covered it recently. So getting back into the run of things with films is very nice, and everyone's support is always so incredibly appreciated. We're not able to make these videos and do videos without you guys. So a massive thank you. If you want to get us on socials, we are going to be having a social media revamp as well, actually. I can say that with TBC on what that revamp is going to be. But if you go on our linktree.com account, that'll put you through to our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd. So that is me rounding out today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all on the next one. Take care.